Hello, YouTube. It is what is this? Week 4 of Sunstrike reveals. We got a bunch of Hera stuff. We've got some new runes to talk about. Lots of cool stuff. Let's get right into it. I'm at the bottom of the collect page. Oopsies. Okay. So we got this new Bellaby, champion of Hephaestus. Actually, no, yeah, that's first. Yeah. Um, So this is 3/4. When you cast it, you can search your deck for Reforge. If you don't recall, Reforge is like the ambrosia that gets you back an artifact as well. Pretty strong card. This thing's stat line is not good enough. I can't really see this thing lining up. Just doesn't seem particularly good. It does mean we're getting a new Fornax at number 17. We have some Hestia champions here now that we'll talk about in a bit. But this makes number 15 interesting. It could be a one-stage Earth. Or I think it's more likely that it's a one-stage Fire that is either a champion of Hephaestus or a champ for one of the Earth Defines. Most likely Hephaestus. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Lavalith or something like that. But we'll see what turns out being there. Then we've got two new champions of Hestia. Both are 1-drops. Very good to see. Like, two new one drops is far more likely to be helpful than a single 2-stage. So we have Earthsmog, champion of Hestia. 1/2. When you cast this Earthsmog from your hand, you can Nexus a Fire. When you do, you can special cast a 1-spirit Elestral that is a champion of Hestia or a bear from your deck. This is quite good. So like as long as you have a Nexus Bank, you're a Divine deck, so you should be able to accomplish that. You'll be able to cast this out, special cast out, like something else you want, like fucking Kinleo. You can get out another bear, like we have the Ursier, I think it is, the 4/1 from last set. That's pretty good. There's a lot of good options with this. If you special cast it out with Hestia, it's even better. There's a lot of pretty cool stuff you can do with this card. This card seems pretty powerful. And this is the first time, like, on like a 1-drop, seeing an effect that special casts out of the deck. That is pretty powerful. That is a pretty strong effect. Then we have Ash Rabbit, champion of Hestia. This is a 2/4. Your Fire Elestrals get +2 attack, which is a pretty significant pump. This means that this is always going to be a 4/4. And when you cast a Fire Elestral, you can enchant a fire from your underworld to your field. So you'll get to do that immediately. So you'll immediately get a heal, and then you can continue to do other stuff, right? You can set up other stuff. If you get your special cast out, you get another heal. Doing so with, like, if you go Hestia, normal Ash Rabbit, special cast something else. In that process, you will get back the 2 fires you spent for the special cast on Hestia, which is really strong, obviously. That is some really good stuff. You don't need to specifically cast Champions of Hestia to get that benefit either. So this is doing some really strong stuff. And it can also now enable you to like double proc on receives. Like, and that's something that that Hestia in particular likes, right? Because that's the whole thing with Hestia's Hearth, right? That you get to counter speed enchant more to your champions of Hestia. So that's also pretty strong. There's a lot of really good stuff going on with this card. I like it quite a lot. I'm not sure if this is going to get Hestia over the edge, but this is still definitely a really strong card. Then we go past waters into thunder. Okay. Today, the most recent stream was largely a bunch of thunder stuff. That was the main thing we were getting. So, Crackle, we actually saw this a bit earlier. I don't think we talked about it last time. I don't think it was out at that time. But this is Crackle, champion of Hera. It's a 2/4. When you cast this Crackle, you can search your deck for a name that includes Hera and add it to your hand. That is going to be the proper term Hera. So something with Hera within a name isn't going to work. I had some annoyances with that, and I think that there were better solutions to this problem, but that's not important. We are evaluating the card. you get to add your hand. So like any signature spell, the artifact rune, as well as the Hera Divine itself are all going to be fair game for this. Titles are not names, of course, so you cannot add Champions of Hera off this. We already have Jolton to be able to do that. You can return a Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck in order to target an Elestral and give it -2 attack this turn, so this is effectively a 4 attack. Remember that Platypulse is a 2/3 that can special cast itself by returning a Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck. So that can pump this up to a 3/4. Platypulse itself will also be a 3/4, and they'll both effectively be 5s, which is okay. That's pretty all right. Then we have Signectric. This is a 5/7. As the original Signectric already has the effect that allows you to turbo up into Imperial. This doesn't really need to do that. So it's doing its own thing. It is a 5/7 with 2 Thunders. And when an opponent casts an Elestral, you can disenchant a Thunder from your field in order to target an Elestral and target that Elestral and daze it until your next turn. When you return 1 or more Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck, you can target and destroy a face-down rune. So the stat line on this is a bit awkward. 5/7 is not fantastic. Because like you really want your 2-drops to be able to beat over any 1-drop without any problem, and for that you need to be at least a 6 offensively. However, there's a bunch of ways to increase your stats in Champion of Hera. So this will probably not be that big of an issue. Both these effects are quite strong. The first effect allows it to act as a pseudo counter rune. When your opponent plays anything that is going to be threatening you by attack, you have the ability to just disenchant 1 from your field to daze it, which allows the Signectric to act as a pseudo counter rune, which is very, very strong. That is definitely very, very good. And it also means you can save your actual counter runes for things that aren't combat, things that are more impactful, which is also very, very strong. Then its second effect, when you return 1 or more Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck, you can target and destroy a face-down rune. As we'll get into as we go through the rest of the Hera cards that got revealed, you can proc this a lot of times in a turn. You can very easily set up a burst turn where you destroy 2 or 3 runes with this effect, which is very, very strong. That is really good. And I like this card a lot. I could really easily see Hera decks revolving around a card like this, because that ability to just wipe out the back row is incredibly powerful. Like it's just doing a lot in a small package, and because Platypulse exists in the deck, you effectively have a Tad Puff, so you can just turbo up into this. So like you can search it with Jolton is one thing, but that does eat your normal cast. So I can also see a world where you just run 3 of this, and like are trying to see it consistently and maybe see it multiple times. But yeah, this is a solid card. Then we have, so let's go over Race Rose again real quick. Race Rose is a 2/5 that can return a Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck in order to special send to Race Ridge. It doesn't really do anything on its own, so it's really dependent on Race Ridge being really solid. Like solid enough that you'd want to run multiple, right? Like that's the same kind of camp Drataya is in. Drataya is solid enough because like you can feel very safe with a 3/2 lineup of Drataya Lonagon. And the Dratayas don't feel dead ever because you have enough Lonagons that you can get use out of a second Drataya. Race Ridge is a 5/7 Thunder Frost, so it has the same stat line as Signectric. As we discussed there, that is not an ideal stat line for a 2 cost. However, it is a stat line that can be dealt with. There are solutions for it, especially within this deck. You can return a Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck to foretell 4, and choose up to 2 Thunder or Frost cards foretold this way. You add 1 to your hand and send the other to the Underworld. Strong card. Very good effect. I don't think this is worth ascending for. I don't think this is enough of a powerhouse that it's something that I'm super jazzed about ascending for, right? And it's definitely not something I would really see myself running in multiples. So I think this line is kind of cooked. I can't really see myself running this line. Okay, next we have Platypulse, Magneros. This is another special cast. So this Magneros can special cast from your hand with Thunder if you also return a 1 Spirit Champion of Hera that is not Magneros from your field to your hand and all its enchanting Thunders to the Spirit deck. you can Nexus up to 2 Thunders. So this is a 4/4 stat line, which is pretty nice. It goes up to 5/4 with Platypulse around. This is super cool. It's not as strong as Platypulse, obviously, because you have to return something, so you're not actually swarming the board with this. But you get to look at any of your on-casts on your 1 costs and go, okay, I'm going to get to use this again. I'm going to return it back to my hand and replace it with a body that might end up being better overall. And that's pretty solid. This is another way for us to get Thunder's returned to our Spirit deck without spending our normal cast, which is good for enabling Imperial. There's just a lot going on with this card that I like quite a lot. I do quite like this card. Then we have Ass Rabbit. So Ass Rabbit is once more a 2/5. When this Ass Rabbit receives 1 or more Thunder, you can enchant a Thunder from your underworld to your rune row. That's pretty good. With Hera, that gives you effectively healing, which is very, very good. And when you return 1 or more Thunder from your field to your Spirit deck, you can swap each Elestral's attack with its defense until the next turn, which is, of course, the Champ Galaxy effect. And it's really easy to enable this. Like, the whole deck is going to be enabling this. And this has the Champ Galaxy stat line. So when we look at those Ascensions that are 5/7s, this is an enabler for them, right? Because now they're 7 attack offensively, which is pretty good stuff. One thing this immediately has over Champ Galaxy is that to reactivate Champ Galaxy, you need some sort of Nexus effect, or you need to spend your normal action on re-enchanting to it. This, on the other hand, you have 5 million ways in this deck to trigger this effect. So if the Ass Rabbit lives, it is going to be able to swap your opponent's stats again on the next turn, which is really strong. It's a good target to Nexus to with Magneros as well, because it gives you healing. It's just really fantastic. I like this card a lot. This is really, really good. Really, really giving us the quality that the Ass Rabbit name deserves. Very happy with this card. Okay, and our last thing for Thunder, I believe this is actually the last, like, properly in Thunder card in the set, Elestral in the set, is Electropossum. This is an Ascension of Opossum, who we talked about last week. I'm not going to go over everything with that again, but Electropossum is a 6/2. When this Electropossum receives 1 or more Thunder, you can send a face-up or face-down Thunder rune on your field to the underworld in order to target and destroy a card. This is decent enough payoff. Like, it's 6 attack, which a lot of the 2 costs that ascend off of, like, a knobby type card are only 5 attack. So this being a proper 6 attack is super, super nice. And then immediately can trigger this effect to trade one of your runes for any card in your opponent's field, which can be absolutely worthwhile. We are going to skip ahead a bit to talk about the counter rune it's meant to go with, which is High Voltage. So High Voltage is a 1 Thunder counter rune that you target an Elestral that is not Thunder enchanted and daze it until the next turn. When this face down High Voltage is sent from your field to the underworld, you can return it to your field face down and give your Thunder Elestrals +2 attack until the next turn. So you're able to, the idea obviously with Electropossum is you go, okay, I will dump my High Voltage, pop something of yours, High Voltage will come right back and also give my Possum an attack buff. So it's an 8 now. And that's pretty solid. However, I ultimately am not very impressed with High Voltage, and there's a very specific reason why. It's this bit that it cannot target something that's Thunder enchanted. And I'm very annoyed by the design on this. Because, like, this card does very much fit into that category of cards we've been getting, cards that I've been asking for, which is, okay, this is like a 1 cost negate that is for an element, and it has some specific upside that makes it a consideration versus others. In this case, it's the fact that if your opponent gets rid of it with removal, it comes right back, and then also gives your Thunder Elestrals a buff that might make them too big for your opponent to cleanly out. However, for some reason, it just doesn't work against Thunder Enchanted Elestrals. And I don't understand why. Because this effect, this thing that Elestrals does, where certain effects do not work against Elestrals that are enchanted with typically the same spirit type. It typically appears on cards that are either extremely powerful or have an AoE effect, right? So, okay, this is affecting everything on your field, but you are given an avenue by which to make something on your field immune to it, right? And like that's the exchange for the very high power. Um, this is not that. This is ultimately a single target attack negate. I don't understand why this works like this. It's very frustrating because I think this card would be really good without that, because like having attack negate, that's upside is I don't die to removal. I come right back. Pretty sure you can't use it that turn, but it still comes back and then it gives you a buff that can hedge against whatever your opponent's going for, right? That's really strong. That's a really strong upside. But as it is with this Thunder Enchanting immunity thing it has built in, it's like, well, I guess maybe I sideboard it. Because if I fight another Thunder deck, which there are 3 different distinct Thunder archetypes that are all like pretty solid, then it just will stop working. Yeah, I just don't get why it works this way. I don't think there's any good reason for it to function this way, and it kind of kills the card for me. But that said, I think Electropossum and Zippossum are still probably good enough to see play in Zeus for the reasons we talked about last time. Then we have we found out that this Elestral here is in fact a Frost Elestral, is a champion of Kion. I would not be surprised if this is the only Kion champ in the set. But this is Chilolotl, champion of Kion. It's a 2/5. You can foretell 4. You may add a Frost Rune Foretold this way to your hand. If you do, you have to expend a spirit. This is alright. It's nothing fantastic. I don't think there's a ton of great Frost Runes. But this is going to have a lot of good targets, so it's not great. It can set up for your like mill effects, which is pretty cool. But like self-mill just got taken out back, so like I don't think that's a huge deal, to be honest. Yeah, just not a very big fan of this card. Then we already talked about Ouroboros. Okay, Hera runes. All right, so Scepter of Hera is a 1 thunder artifact rune that you can only have 1 face up on the field, and your champions of Hera get +2/+2. When you activate your Hera's active effect, you can return thunder from your Hera to the spirit deck. This is pretty good. This is a really good card. Personally, I kind of want to run 3 of this card. So a lot of the Hera cards do have a problem where their stats aren't quite good enough. So this card's stat buff does feel really, really important. Very understandable immediately why you can only have 1 on the field, because stacking this up to +4/+6 with like the swarming capacity that the deck inherently has because of platyples gets really ridiculous really fast. Like, if you just go like normal cast a guy, special cast out platyples, have out 2 scepters, then that platyples is like at 7, 8, and the other thing is probably like at like it's probably like an 8 itself. 7 at like the least. I don't think we've seen a Hera Elestral with less than 2 attack. So like it got ridiculous real fast. This lets you accelerate how fast you're turning your Hera spirits as you re-enchanted with all these effects we've seen back into returning to the spirit deck and thus healing, which is also pretty good. If this got revealed early on, I don't think I would have been too jazzed about that effect. But it got revealed with a bunch of stuff that makes it clear that, like, okay, you're going to be moving Thunder Spirits back onto Hera a lot, which means this lets you really accelerate how fast that is going to turn into healing. So that's pretty good. Yeah, this card's just really great. I can really easily see myself running Argo in Hera as well, because this is a really good artifact. Then you just run, like, Argos, like a 1 of Harmonia, and you have Magneros to Nexus off of the necklace, so that you're not getting burned by it. But though you might also just be fine paying that cost on Harmonia. Yeah, this is a really, really good card. I like it a lot. Then we have Family of Hera, which is the signature rune. It's become clear at this point that we've broken the rules of signature runes. There isn't going to be one for Aeolus because the only slot went to a frost rune that we'll talk about in a bit. But this appears to be the signature rune, like in that slot. Enchant up to 2 thunder from your underworld to your Champions of Hera or your rune row. Then you may return a thunder from your field to your spirit deck. This is a pretty good card. It can basically fill the slot of Ambrosia. I'm not sure how necessary it is though. Like it can be valuable for like setting up Imperial or getting more pops with Signectric. But overall, I'm not sure this card is actually like good enough. Like this might just be like attack 1 of or just something you don't run at all. Like it if you really want to set up those burst turns with like Imperial, then it's pretty good and pretty important. But you have other ways of getting there, honestly. So I'm not sure you even need it. And then we go to Frost. So Frost got a new rune. Only rune that a Frost card can go in. Only rune slot that a Frost rune can go in this entire set. This is Glacial Status. It is a 1 Frost counter rune. This Glacial Status can only be played if you control Frost Elestral. Target Elestral until the next turn it cannot ascend, and its effects cannot special cast Elestrals. I don't know why this is Frost specific, because this feels like a sideboard piece. This is not like, this does not have the sort of range where it's just going to be like something that you can just easily splash into Frost decks, right? It is something to answer a pretty specific type of card. And I don't know, I don't like this card. I don't like this card very much. I don't like the way it's locked to Frost. Um, I don't like how limited its range is. Feels pretty low imp. I don't like this card. I don't like this card at all, honestly. Like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I just don't like this card. I just don't think this is very good. Then we have like this feels like maybe part of an attempt to split up Gorgon's Gaze, but if this is how we're doing it, this is a very bad way of doing it, and I really don't want Gaze to get banned if this is how we're setting up for that. I think this is a very bad way to set up for that. Yeah. Then for Lunar, we have Dreamlock. This is in a similar camp. So this is a 1 Lunar counter rune. This Dreamlock can only be played when an opponent casts an Elestral. You nexus a Lunar. If you do, negate its effects on the chain and suppress it until its controller's next turn. So this is a suppression card that allows you to stop the on play or on receive effects of Elestral your opponent just cast, right? That's pretty good, but it requires a nexus, which very hard restricts how live this card is going to be able to be, which is really not fantastic because Artemis is a very bad divine and they haven't done a good enough job of making an archetype around it that is worth running. Yeah, this is not great. I think one cool thing it does is that it suppresses until its controller's next turn, so it will still be suppressed during your turn, which I don't think any other suppression rune currently, outside of Artemis exactly, does right now. So that's pretty cool. That means it will still be suppressed to enable like Champ Spectaris special casts, which are cool. But I just have a hard time seeing it with this card. And again, if this is meant to like fill one of the roles that Gorgon's Gaze is supposed to fill right now, split up those functions so that we can ban it later, I think banning Gaze would put the game in a much worse position if this is the sort of card that we're expected to use as the replacement. So I hope that is not the case. Now, Catabasis. This is a counter rune that I'm actually pretty excited about. So Catabasis is a 1 Lunar counter rune that you target up to 3 Elestrals and or 3 runes. Target up to 3 Elestrals and or runes in a single underworld and put them on the bottom of the deck. If 3 cards were put this way, draw a card. So this is a cantrip that like it's a tale as old as time as, okay, this effect isn't strong enough on its own, but we want players to have access to it in a way that feels good for them to use. So we're gonna put it on an effect that also draws a card. This is extremely strong into Self Mill, into Dugabus, into Hermes, anything of the like. This is going to be very, very, very strong into. Um, Very powerful card. Another thing it does that I really like is that often with Turbo Ascension cards, there's a problem where you want to run 3-1 because you don't really want to draw the Ascension, but it means that you can't access that Turbo Ascension anymore unless it gets exactly shielded back to hand. But this is a card that can allow you to throw back your own those Elestrals. They're at the bottom of the deck, so you can't draw them off the draw here. And now you can go for those effects again, which is pretty strong stuff. Yeah, I like this card a lot. I think this card is quite good. Um, Definitely will see some place in some sideboards, and I would really love to see some exploration of it in that role where like it's like you can even do that in like games where you're sideboarding it in, right? Like, oh, they're not giving me something that I really want to do this to. Slash I've seen too many of them. Well, I can repurpose them in this way, and that can be pretty powerful. And then we have Patroclus's Dice. This is the MBT creator card for the Clash Kickstarter. I love this card. I'm just going to come out right and say I love this card. So this is a Omni Rune counter rune. So it targets an Celestial and gives it +2 attack and +2 defense until the next turn. When this is sent to the underworld, you can target another counter rune in your underworld, shuffle that card into your deck. If you do, return this card to your hand. If the shuffled rune was Shield of Achilles, draw a card. So there's a lot of cool flavor stuff going on with this. But let's not talk about that. Let's focus on the card. This card rules. So first up, this is obviously incredible for self-mill and self-discard strategies because this is a card that they can mill or discard and get back and have access to a counter rune, access to like a higher card advantage flow with their stuff. Like it's really, really powerful, really strong stuff. Now, on the other hand, its combat trick mode is actually not that good. +2 can be enough to swing a lot of combats, but it's also low enough that it can be very easy for your opponent to play around. And if like you discard it or you self-milled it and add it back to hand, your opponent knows about it. They're very aware of it. But it's still something that they're going to have to play around. It's format dependent, right? In a lower to the ground format, where like you're just barely getting over your opponent's stuff, this can really easily completely swing battle phases. But that is not always going to be the case. So I think a lot of the time, this is going to end up its counter rune function is going to be a bit hard to position into a good player. And that will hold it back a bit. Its spirit cost is also definitely inefficient for the amount of buff you're getting. A lot of cards we've seen like more combat tricks lately, and like often when a card only buffs by this much, it only costs 1 spirit. Um, so so that does definitely hold the card back. Um, but I think it'll definitely still immediately find a spot in self discard strategies, especially the fire discard deck that's getting quite a bit of support here. Um, it's still a really good card, and I really like it a lot. I really like the bit where, like, to return to your hand, you have to shuffle back a counter rune specifically, which means that you are still required to run like a pretty standard number of counter runes, like 10 to 12, so you'll actually see other ones that you can shuffle into your deck to get back to hand. And anytime you get to shuffle back Shield is going to be incredibly strong. Um, Shield as a card kind of annoys me, but like even if we get rid of Shield someday, we can always print like a titled Shield that's more reasonable and allow this card to keep its function, which would be cool. Yeah, this card is really really awesome. Like this is a just absolute home run. Incredibly designed card. Love this thing. And we have one more, a creator reveal that just happened today. This is Ectopossum, Champion of Artemis. So this is 079. Where is that again? 079, that's right here. Okay, like exactly where you'd expect it to be. So these will be the Champions of Artemis. This will be the only, in Lunar at least, Champions of Artemis in the set. 80 being open does like seem like it might actually, no, there is the possibility that there's a one-stage Champion of Artemis after this, so we could see that. We'll see. We will see. Let's talk about the card. So it is a 6/3/2 Lunar. When your Hypnosum is destroyed in battle, you can special cast this Ectopossum from your hand using 2 Lunars from your underworld. That's immediately really strong because it's an Ascension that comes into play effectively for free. When you cast this Ectopossum, you can expend 2 Lunars in order to target a suppressed card and return it to the hand. Now, for a conditional bounce like that, that is like really expensive. The stat line isn't fantastic either. Which makes me think, so like baseline, I think it is almost certain that Hypnosum will have an effect similar to what we've seen on Champ Werepup and Champ Cockadoodle in the past, where when it's destroyed in battle, it'll be able to suppress something on your opponent's field so that you can then bring in Ectopossum and immediately do the effect, right? I think it might, like, it'll probably do more than that, right? Because like there's certainly this set has been developed long enough that they saw that those effects in Firestorm just weren't effective at all, right? So like with this stat line and this costing and the removal type being a strictly inferior form of removal, I would not be surprised at all if the Hypnosum actually also searched the Ectopossum. Because like I don't know. It's not seem like very nerfed, very like held back. Um and that is already some like quite some setup you have to do. I'm not sure I can see them expecting you to also hard draw the Ectopossum. That doesn't feel like something they would be doing for the Artemis support all the way in uh in Sunstrike. Now maybe because the Artemis support in Livestream when Artemis was a Focus Divine was quite bad. So like I don't want to put anything past the devs, but like I think this has so many balancing factors on it that I really think Champ Hypnosum might actually search it as well as suppressing something on death. And if that's the case, this is an extremely powerful card, like very easily accessed Ascension. And also, if that's the case, that means like a proper Lunar deck is probably actually really good again. Because like we also have Ouroboros in this set. We of course have the classics of like Spectaris, Werepup, Nobby, that are all super solid. A lot of these have very strong synergies with Rise from the Shadows. Like Ouroboros in particular has incredible synergies with Rise from the Shadows. So like I think I would not be surprised to see this. And if my hunch is correct, then we could be looking at something really, really strong. Yeah, ooh, this could be really good. This could be really good. But that's going to be it for me. This is going to be Hunter Search, signing off.